Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. If this is the first time you see my face, I would love it if you subscribe, as I post videos every Thursday at 5 PM. Sorry if I look a little bit sweaty. I live in a tropical country and I've just put sun cream on. If you've not seen my previous two videos, I am currently in Thailand. I have moved here for a year or at least 5 months to teach English. I'm currently living in the northeast of Thailand and I entered Thailand through the Phuket sandbox scheme. I thought I would fill you in a little bit about that, although I'm not sure how relevant that's going to be anymore, since from the 1st of November they are changing it to the Thailand Plus scheme or something like that. But some people have said that that's basically like what's happening now, but by another name, and they're scrapping a certificate of entry that I had to fill out. Any advice that I give will be a guidance. Please do your own research. And I'm also not sure how out of date this is going to be. This is definitely going up at least 2 weeks after the 1st of November, since I've got a huge backlog of content to get through. I have a lot of information to get through, and at this point I've been in Thailand for just about 2 weeks, so a lot has happened for me in those 2 weeks. So I've written notes on my phone, but if I forget anything, I'm going to put the captions up on the screen. In the past couple of videos, I mentioned that I had my folder of documents to make everything a little bit easier when I went through all the different airports. So I'm obviously not going to show you my documents, but I'm going to tell you about each one and what I had to get into the country. Obviously, I had my passport with me, and then I also had to request a paper vaccination status sheet from NHS Scotland, because they're doing it slightly different than England. I think in England you just get it on your phone. You can get it on your phone in Scotland as well, but I wanted to request a paper copy just because I like to have a copy of everything on paper for airports. I also had my visa with me and I printed out all my boarding passes, obviously. I booked with Emirates, and for the certificate of entry to Thailand, you have to have at least £100,000 of insurance cover that covers including COVID things. I had a look at the Emirates insurance, and Emirates seems to cover multi-risk insurance up to £500,000 or $500,000. So I thought if I just booked the return flight with Emirates, I booked it as far in advance as I could, the return flight, and the insurance covers you for the duration of your period in Thailand, and I can always extend my flight. So I just used the Emirates insurance, printed out all the FAQs about that from the Emirates website, and that seemed to work for me. I've heard of a couple people having issues with it, but other people seem to be completely fine and no one ever questioned my insurance. I also printed out my booking confirmation for my SHA approved accommodation, which is the one that you saw me arrive into in Phuket. I chose the Royal Paradise Hotel and Spa, and it was under £20 a night. Absolutely loved it. And one thing that I really liked about the Phuket sandbox scheme is that you can choose your own accommodation. It just has to be SHA Plus approved, and so does the taxi that you take from the airport to your accommodation if you're not using an airport transfer. I also printed out confirmation of my booking of my day 5 Phuket PCR, because when you get to the airport you get a PCR taken at Phuket airport, but then you obviously have to take one again on day 5 so that you can leave the island on day 7. I think that PCR cost me about £100, and the PCR that I took at home cost me about £69, but I think the PCR at Phuket was covering something else as well. I'm not entirely sure. I have my accommodation booking printed out, and I booked my SHA Plus accommodation on agoda.com. It makes it really easy. They've got a whole section on SHA Plus approved accommodation. And then I also printed out my Shaba ID, which you have to email the accommodation for to basically prove that the hotel that you're staying at is SHA Plus approved, and they've got like a certificate to prove it and everything. I also had to fill out a T8 health declaration form, which they looked at the airport, and then I also gave it to the hotel when I arrived, and I don't have it anymore. They took it away at the hotel. I also booked my flight from Phuket to Bangkok in advance, just in case they wanted proof of onward travel, but I don't think anyone ever asked me for this. And then when you leave the hotel on day 7, they give you a little piece of paper that says you've completed the quarantine, and you need that to go to the airport to fly on to your next destination. So I needed that at Phuket airport to get to Bangkok. So I think those are all the documents that I took with me. I'm just going to run through each airport and what each airport checked. I don't recommend that you just follow this to a T. I would print out everything and have everything ready, because other people had different documents checked. I'm just going to tell you my experience. Glasgow airport, they were really pretty lax. I wasn't quite expecting that. They just checked my vaccination proof certificate and my PCR test that I did in Glasgow. And then I think at Dubai they checked my vaccination certificate, my PCR certificate, my visa maybe, and my certificate of entry. They definitely checked my certificate of entry. I also need a certificate of entry. I can't believe I forgot that, but also people are saying that the Thailand Plus scheme just takes away the certificate of entry. It's just basically something that you fill out online. It's pretty easy. You just need to upload the relevant documents to prove that you have got somewhere to go and work in Thailand and you've got a visa and everything like that. Getting to Phuket airport was a little bit of a story time that I promised you at the end of my moving to Thailand vlog. Basically, I took my flight from Glasgow to Dubai. I was sat beside a lovely elderly couple. I took it in the daytime UK time, so I didn't really get to sleep. I just watched two films. I watched In the Heights and Luca, both of which I'd never seen before. I really liked both. Luca made me cry, and In the Heights I really liked, but it was quite long. And then I met up with the other guys that I was travelling with in Dubai, and we got the same flight from Dubai to Phuket, and I was really glad that I had other people that I knew on that flight, and I had sat beside a girl that was also going with me. She told me her seat number and I booked beside her just in case. So I hurried through Dubai airport, because if you've been to Dubai airport you know that it can be quite big, but I got there in plenty of time. I had a 1 hour 55 layover, and I was worried about that. You do need to go through hand luggage security again. Until you actually check in at the gate, they don't really check any documents. I was worried about, you know, checking multiple times COVID things and 1 hour 55 not being enough, but it was completely fine. And we were waiting at the gate for a while. Our flight was at 3 AM. Then at the airport at Dubai, they check those documents that I already told you about, and then we get on the plane, everything's fine. I'm trying to go to sleep, but my legs are just too uncomfortable because I've already been sat on a plane for 7 hours. I'm sat on another plane for 7 hours. My legs are just restless. Couldn't find a comfortable position to sleep, and you obviously have to keep your mask on, and I felt like I couldn't breathe trying to sleep with my mask on. So I just tried to watch some films. I watched Monsters University and just dozed off multiple times. But when we tried to land in Phuket the next morning, they said that the weather was really quite bad, and we tried to land and the plane was going like this, and I had the camera on front view that you can see what the pilot is seeing basically, and we were just going like this, and I was sat with my arms on my side, and I'm not scared of flying. I was scared in that moment, and then basically aborted the landing, went back up again, circled around a few times, but then we decided to go to Krabi, and they did not tell us that for the first bit. They changed the destination on the little screen in front of you, so then it said Dubai to Krabi, and I think if I hadn't had other people on the plane with me that I'd kind of knew for the past 7 hours or whatever, I would have panicked a little bit, because I would have been like, have I got on the wrong plane? Is this going to Krabi? But no, we decided to land in Krabi because we couldn't land in Phuket, and we ended up staying in Krabi for 4 hours because A, we needed to refuel, B, they needed to figure out what we were going to do, and the weather wasn't getting any better in Phuket. So we stayed in Krabi for 4 hours. At this point I'd been travelling for over 24 hours and I was just done. I've never wanted off a plane so much in my life. I was so happy to touch down on ground. So yeah, stranded in Krabi for 4 hours, and obviously I had no money, Thai baht, that I had taken from home, so I still needed to take money out at Phuket airport. We managed to fly back to Phuket from Krabi 4 hours later, which took about 15 minutes, and then we landed. And what you do when you land at Phuket airport is they make you download this app. Don't even know what it's called because the app name is in Thai, but it's a little blue app, and then you just basically tell them that they can track your location. I think it's like Thailand Track and Trace basically. They take your departure card that you filled out on the plane, check your temperature, and then they check your documents, and I got my passport checked, and then you go through immigration and they check all your documents again. At this point I was like, when are we going to do the PCR? Because I was a bit nervous about the PCR. Girls that were already in Phuket had told us that they go deep. We got our bags, I got currency out, and it turns out PCR is the last thing you do. You can't leave the airport without going through the PCR bit, which is like just outside the airport. They set up tents and everything. What did she do in my outfit to fly PCR in Glasgow? I think she either just did my nose or she just did my mouth, but I was quite surprised and it was quite nice. But anyway, the PCR in Phuket, it is both nostrils, and she leaned back and she just went in. It wasn't too bad. And then on day 5, obviously we need to do the Phuket PCR to leave Phuket, so we went and did that. You've got to say where you're going to have it when you book the PCR. So we went to like the shopping centre place in Phuket, which is like a 10-minute walk from the hotel, and we went there, and it's actually in the car park across the road. Queued up, there wasn't really many people there at all. That one went quite deep. I think that one was probably the deepest one that they did. They only did one nostril, so swings and roundabouts. Another thing I wanted to touch on, which I touched in my packing video, was I was a bit worried about my domestic flight baggage allowance, because obviously my international flight baggage allowance was going to be more than my domestic flight. Emirates said that I could have 30 kilograms, but it could be split up into multiple bags. So one of my bags was about 9-10 kilograms and the other one was about 14. And when I flew from Phuket to Bangkok, I was really worried. I was like, I don't care, I'm just going to pay extra for the baggage. Put it on and it was 24 for both of them. Like I'd said, they were meant to be 20 for one and then 7 for the other one, I think, but she said that because it was only like a few over for one of them, she was just gonna let me go and I didn't have to pay, which was so kind of her. She said like 23, 24 was okay. I'm not saying that this is like gospel, so if you're going hoping to not pay with 24 kilograms and then she tells you you have to pay, don't shout at me. One of my other friends, she was like at 28 kilograms and she said to her you can try and shuffle stuff around, and she only managed to shift 1 kilogram, but then she got away with it as well. She didn't have to pay. But then one of my friends who flew out the day after us from Phuket was a few kilograms over as well, and they made her pay. So like I say, don't take that as gospel, but it was something I was worried about and I ended up not having to pay. I think that is everything that I've noted down on my notes that I wanted to update you on about the whole process of flying to Thailand. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments down below, and I definitely will do a Q&A once I get enough questions for them, because I feel like people will have questions and I'll probably have missed out stuff. I've just been sat here editing this section that you've just watched, and I didn't realise that I would blab on so much. This was just meant to be a section before like the first Phuket vlog, but it's already been over 10 minutes, so I think I'm just going to make this video by itself, and then the first Phuket vlog will be out next week. I hope you guys are excited for that. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and don't forget to subscribe as I post videos every Thursday at 5 PM, and I'll see you guys next week for a brand new video. Bye! Follow me, or would you let it be? If I leave tonight, we could do this right. We'll find the remedy, or would you stay with me?